I don't know about all of you,
Okay.
but I'm feeling kind of a deja vu with all of you here popping up on the screen, just like looking at our Thursday sessions last year. It's kind of the main ones.
Well, there you go.
So lovely to be here.
It's nice to have us back. So tonight we're going to look at the idea of where control fits in with Aikido. So I'm going to start by saying that for a very long time, I've had a problem with this. I'm looking at the philosophy, and here we are supposed to be blending with another person. So how do you get a perfect blend if you're looking to control somebody? There was something there that I struggled with. Now, I think I'm kind of happy with it now, but who else sees a problem between control and the philosophy of Aikido? Opening thoughts. Where do you sit on this? I can fill your names randomly if you'd like me to, but you all get
okay,
to
I'll give you an opening thought, Quentin. The conflict arises, I think, when you think you can take control quite easily.
Okay.
If I come up against somebody like you on a mat, or others, I know the only way to successfully complete a technique is to go in completely the opposite direction, to completely relax, to not assume that there's an easy task in front of me. And that normally works.
Okay, anything you want to add?
No.
Okay, good. Andrew?
I looked at the other way around. So rather than thinking about controlling a person, I tend to think about controlling a situation. And that way, and as the old adage, if you can't control yourself, you can't control anybody else. So to control a situation, first of all, starts with controlling myself.
Very good. Joe?
I don't know, maybe associating control with finding the solution. So if I can control a situation or myself or the other person, means that by the situation, I really have to find a result in the end, or make everything work in the end. So this can go to a control that I might get very anxious about that, and I don't know. For me, maybe one different path would be just letting go this ending point that I really need to get a result as a control, and then just open to the process maybe. But it's a difficult. I'm not that yet.
I like that idea of being open to the process, and perhaps finding the control is about just having enough control to be open to the process. Paul?
Yeah.
Controlling, yeah.
Well,
I'm making my way around the screen, Vitaly. So Paul next.
If I asked you, please pass the salt, what would you do? You'd probably give me the salt. But if you give me the salt, jerk, you'd throw it at me or hit me. Which offers better control? So I think in a combat situation, you must control the attacker, the attack, and the outcome. But I think the best way to do it is gently and kindly.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Me?
Well said. You don't need to add anything by just asking.
Well, yes, let's all achieve world peace real quick, then we don't have to worry anymore.
Okay, let's see if we can find the control to do that. Vitaly.
I just wanted to say that maybe it's we can transfer the meaning of controlling to meaning of feeling. When you can feel, and maybe you better control yourself. Let's put it this way: you controlling yourself according to the feelings you receive from the person, and you just work with this person as you feel. And like on one of the sessions with Mary Heine, she was saying, okay, I want to, I need to feel the room, the whole room where and I offered one also think that you don't feel the room, but you become the room where people are. So if you control yourself, you control everything around yourself, and you just feel yourself inside of this flow of energy and everything. Just that's maybe it's closer to control what I think of.
Okay, for me, that feeling process is a process. It's part of the information gathering that allows you to have the possibility of controlling the situation and coming out with good outcomes. But it's not control itself. It's just, and just my point of view, it is just part of that process. John, thoughts for you?
Control to me is to reach a state of kazushi as soon as possible. Then I can deal with the problem and deal with the attack also. So getting to that point of kazushi as quickly as I possibly can.
Okay, so that. Are you kind of reiterating what Andrew's saying, that first you've got to control yourself and put yourself in the best position of
yes, yeah.
Well,
the best, yeah, yeah. The best position is not to be there at the point of attack.
Yeah. Okay. Linda.
Well, Andrew took the words right out of my mouth. So I agree with him that maybe we're controlling the situation rather than a someone. But and this also brings to mind, I think it was Mary Heine Sensei who said the first violence we need to control is our own. I think that when we can settle down and be more controlled ourselves, it will help control the situation. And I'm kind of internally conflicted about one thing about the control idea, that there is, there are obvious situations. Somebody's about to slug somebody on the street. Yeah, that's step in and take care of that. But I mean, in theory, but there is a sort of paternalistic, I know what's best here and I'm going to impose it on you sense that I don't know of any good examples where, like, I've heard of anyone being a problem in that way, but that's a little hurdle in my mind to get past.
Well, I think you've hit upon the moral dilemma. I mean, you can step into a situation and you might think you're doing the right thing, but maybe you didn't have all the facts. Actually, you produce a situation that would be exactly opposite to what you wanted, because you thought one thing, but it was something else was going on.
I actually saw a situation like that unfold, and I had to step back because I didn't know who was chasing whom, who was the bad guy. Yeah, you guys work it out,
Very difficult. Steve, what are your thoughts?
Most of what has already been said, but I also feel that when you are controlling not the individual, you're controlling the situation. In other words, you tenken in your head to be the same, see the same things they see in their way. So you're moving to be part of them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, because you're able to feel. It goes back to that word again, and it'll always be in Aikido. You have to feel the situation. By the time you've seen it, it's too late anyway. You need to feel, and that takes years to learn.
Yeah, can do.
As for anything else, I'm more or less on the same lines as the others.
Okay, great. Last but not least, Molly. Right, you have to unmute though. If you're going to share your pearls of wisdom, you have to unmute.
So I've always looked at this as compassionate guidance. for self and my partner. And it's not so much the idea of control, which is like an over kind of a thing, but guidance allows both partners to express a different way, a love way, choosing something different. And so I've never felt like I'm, controlling. I understand the language, but it really just seems like guidance to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the metaphor that springs to me to my mind is a bit like driving a car. Do you want to control? Are you controlling the car when you're driving it? Yes, you are, but you're making sure it stays on the road and the two of you are safe. And I think that the dichotomy that we can have is that when you're trying to control somebody else, you've kind of stepped over the line. So when you're imposing your will on them, then you've stepped over the line. When you're controlling us, so you're like the driver of the situation, you're offering that guidance, then that's an entirely different situation. You're putting the positive input in there so that this situation has a positive outcome for both of you. And it wouldn't happen without the skills we bring to bear to bring that situation to a positive conclusion. So yes, we are controlling the situation, and part of that is controlling ourselves to be able to put ourselves in a position to do that. But it's not like we're imposing ourselves on the other person. That's where I think we've overstepped.
Why is that a problem?
You're counselling, aren't you, Sensei?
Am I counselling, did you say?
Counselling, yeah. You're offering to listen to somebody else or whatever to do. Your counsel, you're acting as a counsellor to.
In a way you are, aren't you? You're kind of listening through your body. You're picking up all the information and all the energy, and you're guiding this to a place where you can look after you, make sure that you're safe, but also ultimately have the skill to be able to look after your partner as well.
Well, if you're looking after say the marriage guidance or something like that, you're not telling somebody, you're guiding and bringing into place what you hope is the right thing for both of them.
Yeah.
How is that different from skillful control?
Say that again, Paul.
How is that different from skillful control? What's the problem with having control over somebody? If you force them to do your will, but your will is to help and not to hurt, to help them and not to hurt them, how do we differentiate between skillful control and hateful control? That's the real difference, I think.
For me, the difference is a question of, even if you can be very, very skillful, but is your desire to work with this other person, or is your desire to make sure that you get the best outcome for yourself?
If you take that second, selfish, it isn't good control. Your body won't work well. You won't be able to hear them and listen to them and be with them. But I think we get hung up on the word of control. I like to control people who need to be controlled for their own good and for everybody else's good. Otherwise, I'm giving up my responsibility.
I think that's absolutely true. A good few of us have been parents or are parents, and when our children are very young, we definitely control them, but we control them with love, because we know that that's going to produce a better human being at the end of the day. Otherwise, you end up with a wild person who's not fit for man nor beast.
Like our ex-president. I didn't say that.
Brendan, I'm going to pick you up on the car analogy.
Yeah, please do.
Because I don't think it's a good one.
Oh, good, marvelous. Tell me more.
Well, because the problem with cars, any kind of vehicle, is that they are very powerful weapons.
Sure.
And often, well, usually much more powerful than the individual driving them. So you need a great deal of skill and alertness and awareness to be able to control that vehicle and make sure it doesn't damage you, but in particular, it doesn't damage anybody else, because most accidents damage other people, not the driver. And so the problem with it is that a lot of people who are using powerful tools are using tools which are far more powerful than their capability to control.
I think you point out a real danger, but I think actually you're supporting my argument, because ideally you've got to have the skill to be able to control the car, to get the best out of the car. And if you don't have that skills, that's when accidents happen and things go badly wrong, or any other tool that we care to you know, talk about, or any other skill that we care to talk about. If the person who's trying to do that skill isn't very good at it, they might be searching for one outcome, but end up with something completely different. Yeah. So, is it okay that we end up throwing somebody on the floor then? So where do we stop being martial, and what's the line between the martial aspect of what we do?
What's the floor like? What's the throw like?
I don't throw anybody on the floor. If I don't catch their balance, their balance is gone. They're just going down as a natural way of self-preservation.
So in other words, yeah, the result of them hitting the ground is because their energy's taken them there rather than anything that you've forced on them.
Well, ideally, they're not hitting the ground. Ideally, now I'm speaking in terms of the Aikido community, and rather than just some random person off the street, but ideally that in the part of the art of ukemi, which is it's equally as important to me as nage, if sometimes even more so, because you have to, as uke, you have to really create a safe space for yourself to get to the ground.
Sure.
Ideally, any training partner, I can bring them down to the ground softly. It's like the one time that Duran threw me in Jujunage, it surprised both of us. It was there, and I was launched, but I came onto the mat like a feather through both my ability, but his extension of safety, like a bubble. And so there wasn't a throw, it was an extension, and I just followed his guidance, really.
Yeah. And nicely put. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? Joe?
Actually, I have more a question for everyone. I was watching a couple of videos of Randori, and actually it was only one uke. It was an Aikido demonstration, and he was rolling back and forth, and in the end of that demonstration with that uke in particular, the nage ends up just with the uke immobilizing him on the floor, just like could be a ikkyo or nikyo or any technique that uke ends laying down on the floor. What all of you think about that? It's kind of okay. We're on the random attacking, rolling. We're kind of dialoguing on some situation, and in the end, we could controlling that. Okay, it's good enough. Let's continue later. What could we relate with this metaphor to something in daily life, or why that happens? What is the difference from the regular throwing someone and uke rolls and stand up again, comparing to ikkyo that you just lay down on the floor with a wrist lock or something blocking you on the floor? So it's more than a question for your thoughts over that related to control.
So, well, my thoughts for one is that if you're throwing somebody up and down, it's like a continuous process, and that's fine. Whereas when you're carrying out an immobilization, there is a definite stop, and you might choose to release the immobilization and allow the situation to continue again. But for whatever reason, you've chosen to do something that, okay, let's just take a breath here and see where this is going to go. So I don't think there's necessarily a philosophical difference. It's the same control that's taking part. It's just the idea of one's continuous and there's an ending point. What do others think?
It's just a different type of technique. It's a technique that immobilizes someone rather than throws them away.
Yeah. And I think
for me, Quentin, the randori is one of the most critical elements of Aikido, and is the closest thing we get to everyday life. And the reason I say that is, when you're living your lives, you're not normally just dealing with one problem. You've got problems or distractions, call it what you will, coming in from all angles. And you need to be able to deal with one quickly, get it out of the way, and then next one incoming. So it's really, really close. The closest thing in Aikido to everyday life, in my view. It is not taught enough, because we spend hours and hours doing partner practice. Very, very important it is too, but far too little time doing randori. And randori comes down to it. It's you're not actually really doing a technique. You are disposing of a problem to quickly to be able to tackle the next problem. If you go into a full technique on randori, you expose yourself to the next attack.
Well, certainly if you went into an immobilization, it might be a bit dodgy.
Precisely so, precisely so. So to Joe, what I'd say is look at the video again and watch where the concentration of Nage was on pinning somebody down. Because if they were focused down on the pin, they're open to attack from all behind and all other directions.
Yeah, so I think it wasn't actually a randori, it was a demonstration with uke and nage. It was a pairing practice, but it was just rolling and then immobilizing in the end. But yeah, randori, it's another kind of controlling or not the situation.
Yeah.
But you're right, I will check that. Thank you, Hugh.
And the other critical thing about randori is I have a bit of a game sometimes where I have a stopwatch. And just myself or anybody else, just time how long it is before they lose concentration and energy. It's very quick. The adrenaline flows out, and you get messy. You expose. Anybody can come and tap you on the back, and that's it. Finished. Yeah. You watch somebody very good, and they can just carry on all day. They're very relaxed and they're moving, and they're dealing with the problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, John.
Breathing and pacing yourself in randori is vital, and keeping your back against the goldfish bowl. Once you get involved in the technique, you're sunk, especially if it's randori against 4 or 5 people. Great practice.
Yeah. I take your point that it's kind of the closest thing to life, though. So do we control life? No, we don't, but we're trying to find a way in which we can kind of keep walking forward even when everything seems to be against us. So we deal with this, we deal with that, and we're constantly moving forward. Occasionally we might have to pause for breath as we're doing that, but we're moving forward come what may. So are we in control then? Well, we're in control of ourselves. It comes back to what we were saying at the beginning. If you're not in control of yourself, you don't stand any chance of kind of walking forward and making progress. And that's maybe, well, the starting point and the ending point. I'm not sure. What do others think? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. The other side of control is awareness. So if you are aware of the situation, it's a much easier thing to control.
Without any awareness, you've absolutely got no chance of control, have you? So that comes back to Vitali's point about feeling. That's part of the awareness process, opening up your senses so that you become aware of what's actually going on through what you feel, through your body, through what's inputting your brain through sight and hearing and smell and touch and all the rest of it. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? Or have we done it?
Well, also on it being thrown, I like to think about it as more receiving the technique than being thrown.
Yes. So there's an element, you know, whichever role you are, it starts with being in control of yourself. If I as a complete beginner rush in like a banshee so that I get back exactly what I put in, the likelihood is that it's going to be difficult to guide that person safely to the mat, in my opinion. They're going to crash to the mat and not be able to take the fall. So knowing what I can put in and safely receive seems to me a big part of that. And I obviously, Molly, I do think that as the person receiving technique, if I'm, especially as a teacher, I should be able to protect my partner to a very high degree. But I can think of circumstances where someone just come rushing in like a bull in a china shop, not particularly with me, but I've seen it happen where they just couldn't control what the output that they got back was going to do to them. Yeah.
Well, the level of caring and compassion for partnering is really expanded when you're moving around in wheelchair mobile, because it's not just my body, it's also the field of this metal that I'm seated on. And so the fine, there is a refined practice of not only am I moving them around my structure here, but I'm also keeping them out of my casters, keeping them out of my big wheels, and to significant success. I think I've only had 2 people in 26 years where I've rolled on their toes, kind of a thing. So you know, and so
I think I've trod on a lot more toes than that, which is far less problematic.
Yeah, so this field of awareness gets really big, you know, and oftentimes, you know, like if I'm doing Ikkyo, I end up with people right in my lap, literally laying on my lap, and I, you know, the arms up here, and I'm kind of gathered them up into me, and that, you know, was the safest place for them to be. Was almost
I'm sure it was, Molly. I'm sure it was.
Full-on hug, you know.
So I often think that Steve is, in many ways, he's quite lucky not seeing, you know, because it's enhanced his other senses to a level beyond what most of us bother to develop because we rely on our sight so much. And we did a lesson last week on Thursday where I made everybody shut their eyes. And guess what they said? They said they found the technique easier because they were just reacting to what they felt rather than anything else. And I wonder if that's the same for you, Molly, that it's kind of forced you to enhance your skills and awareness because you are restricted and you do have to be more careful about what you do.
Yeah, I have to be really aware of my back, you know, because, well, just because something's coming from behind. You know, the hackles, like on an animal, go up. My field of expression is huge. I mean, it just had to extend. And in teaching, you know, this is something I encourage for everybody. Really, you're aware of your sides and your back and your front and your feet and your head. It's like a full-on expanded awareness, and it keeps me safe on the road when I'm driving. I mean, it keeps me safe when I'm, you know, in a. I have ended up with people on my lap in a shopping center. I don't know. I mean, like, I'm big and I don't understand why they don't see me, but.
You just like people on your lap, don't you? It's any excuse to hug somebody.
So Molly, have you always had that sense, or has it evolved?
It's definitely evolved. but as a, you know, having done contact improvisational dance and stuff like that, that field has been practiced for a long time, but it's broader in present day.
Paul, let me come to you, because one of the aspects of Parkinson's, of course, is that the normal control of your body somewhat disappears. That's one way of putting it. Tell us a little bit about that and how that's informed your Aikido journey.
Let me see what I can do. Yeah. 20 years of Parkinson's. I can stand on one leg. Not a great day today, but there we are. Control is the ability to arrange things so that you get the outcome you need and want. And what I do is, if I hated the Parkinson's, I'd have less control. I think there's a German book, Mein Freund Parkinson's. I've got to read it. My German wasn't good enough when I got it. My friend Parkinson's. So I just think of control as the ability to work with what's available.
Right.
And to that extent, I don't see any problem with dropping people to kill them if that's necessary. I hope it isn't. I don't think it should be. But control is just the ability to do what's necessary. And in Parkinson's, if I don't exert some kind of control, I can't move.
So the two things that come to me out of that, one, there has to be an element of acceptance in the first place.
And that is control too.
Right, yeah. And the other one is that there's always an appropriate outcome, and it's very hard to predetermine what the most appropriate outcome is until the situation evolves.
So control doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get what you think you want when you start. It just means you do your best to arrange things so they come out life-affirming, I would call it. But life-affirming doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to be alive afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's a logic problem.
Sorry, Paul. It's like driving that car. You're in control of that car, but you're not in control of what's happening around the car.
No, exactly. And that's
It'd be
where
nice
a huge
if
skill comes in, that you, and Molly's awareness that, you know, it's having those skills to be able to deal with what comes on the road as you travel around the corner or whatever. Vitaly, is it the same story for you? I mean, you've been in a situation where you're very athletic, enjoyed use of your body, and now you've got this restricted use. How's that impacted what we're talking about?
Yeah, what I would say that actually all my life turned into being in control of yourself all the time. For example, I hate to sneeze when I'm trying to walk somewhere because I'm losing control right away, and I'm afraid to. It's like one of my friends from I can remember from England. He bought a new car, and his garage was there was a pole in the garage. And when he was driving in, he sneezed. So he rammed this pole with a new Mercedes. And it's pretty much the same when I'm walking somewhere, because I'm using a walker, not a wheelchair all the time, but I'm using a walker to go to the shower. And I have to control a lot of stuff around myself and trying to feel everything. Whenever I lose it, or for example, I get my hand is itching, and all my control goes into there, and that's what I also hate when it happens. So I have to control myself in the room around, and everything that's happening around me.
So a phrase is sprung. Paul, yeah, go on.
One time I was talking to Mary Heine, and she asked me, what do you think Aikido is in its core? I said, Aikido is the process of removing free will from another human being and forcing them to do what you want. She thought that was terribly egotistical until I said, well, what I'm going to do is prevent this guy from hurting the kid he's trying to hurt. I'm going to keep him from hurting himself. I'm going to make him go into therapy with a kind-hearted therapist and heal. She said, oh, well, that's not so bad. So it really depends what you do with your control.
Yeah. And the phrase that was popping into my head as Vitaly was speaking is one aspect of control is learning to accept what you can't control.
Yes.
because there's an awful lot of that going on, far more of that actually than what you can control. And it seems to me that if you want to be happy in life, which is very much part of what I think the Aikido journey is about, finding personal contentment and development, it is about accepting that whatever comes your way is coming your way, and you've got to deal with that and make the best of that and find contentment through that.
One of the things I recently understood, the hard arts develop fighting spirit, the ability to accept by smashing hard things and enduring the pain. I think the soft arts do exactly the same thing, but we just open gently and let it be. And we still wind up with a sense of, I'm going to go through it, but it isn't hard. I'm going to go through it by accepting it.
Yes. Yes. So it's not, so if I can try and just summarize that, what you're saying is you don't have to smash everything down into bits, but you have to have some sort of way of consistently moving forward. There are more than one way to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything anyone else wants to add on the thought on the idea of control in Aikido?
I just point out that Randori has the opposite effect, where you don't have to see to do it, you just have to feel to do it. And the reason I like it is because it relaxes me, gives me a chance to relax in the full sense of training, you know?
Absolutely. So why does it make you, I mean, you've got an awful lot going on around you that you're not being able to control. Most people would find that very stressful. Why do you find it relaxing?
I find it relaxing because I'm trying to incorporate all the base of Aikido that one has learned over time to bring into play, like how to center and so on. But you're not actually thinking, now I got to center. You're thinking, you don't think, you let the mind control the body.
I was just about to say, maybe it's the fact that when you're working one-on-one and trying to make something happen, you think too much. When
Yeah,
you're,
people
when you're
think,
doing
yeah,
Randori, you haven't got time to think.
you
You've
don't
only got
have
time to do.
You just got enough time to breathe and relax. Try to get that breathing under control, then that should relax you down even more.
Yeah.
Because you're blending with what's around you, not trying to put Fred or Tom into the mat. You just let things happen.
Yeah.
Where you're practicing evasion skills there, aren't you? There's a lot of evasion in Randori.
That's right.
You don't have to take every attack that's
No,
being given to you. You can bypass it and move on to the next.
Well, isn't that true for life in general, John?
Exactly.
I mean, you can react to every
Mm.
comment, or you can just not take it on board because it's not worth the time of day.
mm,
You know, I think we see a lot of that on social media, don't we, really? People react to every negative comment where they could just ignore it and walk past it, and their life will be a much more positive experience as a result.
Well, it doesn't take much to light my fire. Like, I go wild when I listen to politics.
Certainly one of the things that I've learned is you, when raising children, because I do think that there's a lot of Aikido in raising children, is you learn to fight your battles. There are some things that are worth a war over, and other things you can let this one pass, it doesn't really matter. And I think that's true in life in general, actually.
Actually, I also have a disability. I live in the north of England, and sometimes when I have to teach in London, I have to decide to teach with my Geordie accent, like, you know, or put my BBC voice on. So I have it.
You bring your BBC voice to these sessions, don't you, John?
Here you go, man.
Otherwise, none of us would understand you, and you know.
Cruel. Hey, the fog on the Tyne is all mine.
That is all mine. Very good song, that is. Okay, so basically, I think we agreed that control and Aikido is definitely a positive relationship, part of the study and not a dirty word at all.
Yes.
I think we're agreed on that. Then I'm going to stop the recording, but I might well open it up for a bit of a social session